The word bokeh comes from the Japanese word bokeh, which means blur or haze. This is the aesthetic quality of the blur produced in the outer focus parts of an image. This is mostly used to blur a background or foreground. Bokeh has also been defined as the way the lens renders out of focus points of light in your image. Though difficult to quantify, some lenses have subjectively more pleasing out of focus areas. Wider aperture lenses such as an f2 or 2.8 excel in bokeh quality. Let's see what this looks like, shall we? Have you ever thought of how artists painted out of focus areas in their art before the invention of photography? We've seen how the early photographers followed these artistic conventions until the advent of more advanced film and digital cameras, with digital cameras in particular changing the way we use bokeh in a new artistic way. If we look at Da Vinci's famous Mona Lisa, we can see it has a rather appealing, soft, dreamy look to the face and to the landscape that most artists avoided. The most commonly agreed characteristics of good bokeh is that good bokeh should be smooth. It should look natural, with smooth transitions from in and out of focus areas. Bokeh is often associated with images taken with wide open apertures and ultra-fast lenses, where there is a very narrow depth of field, and good bokeh gives a good 3D pop to the image because the subject in focus is isolated against the blurred background. Not all bokeh images are taken at wide open apertures. Some great bokeh lenses with 15 blades or more are taken with apertures stopped down rather than wide open, giving relatively smooth bokeh shapes. And speaking about shapes, there are a wonderful variety of shapes that lenses can produce in out of focus areas, especially in the right light. For example, bokeh circles, cat's eyes, bubble bokeh, where there's obvious lines around the circles. Different number of aperture blades can produce different kinds of geometric shapes and bokehgons, such as hexagons, octagons, or even these 15-sided pentadecagons, and ninjas and sawtooth shapes. And then, of course, there's swirly bokeh and even starbursts, and others that I probably forgot to mention. You don't need an ultra-fast lens to produce good bokeh. Some of these are taken with an f4 or 3.5. I think the sharing of photos online has certainly had a major impact on seeing something you like, making you want to experiment and improve your own photography. So now, as we move through this digital era, this is where the use of bokeh as a compositional and indeed artistic technique have really taken off. There's a lot more interest in how bokeh adds value to an image, either helping to isolate the subject in focus by smoothing out even busy backgrounds rather than relying on neutral backgrounds, or by adding a unique look to some of the previous images we have just seen. These effects can sometimes overpower the subject in focus, and the bokeh becomes the main point of the photograph. I'm not sure if it's possible to give a precise date or event that encourage photographers to consider bokeh as a more important part of their image, if indeed they were trying to use bokeh as a feature. In conclusion, I'd argue bokeh is very much a modern phenomenon. It's a product of the digital era, and for the first time has become a key part of compositions. And it's not just about background blur from fast lenses. It can be a lot more than that. Foreground blur, unusual shapes and features, wide open or stop down. And it's not just about cameras and lenses. It's about the use of software to become more creative and more artistic in your images. Of course, all of this is directed against the photographers that value bokeh-rich images. Some product or landscape photographers may simply want to see a lot of in-focus details across the frame. Well, that's all. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.